Hi everybody, my name is David, and I, along with my teammates Brenna, Austin, Catherine, and John, will be discussing with you today the current issues going on throughout the coffee supply. So to start off with a brief summary, there are some huge shortages of coffee going on throughout the world, and it's all thanks to a very poor harvest in Brazil in 2021, and their harvest was so poor because their coffee farming regions endured one of the worst droughts in over a century and a very late frost that killed off a huge portion of their coffee trees. So these extreme weather conditions really have set up Brazil and then Colombia as well, a neighboring coffee producing country, for very poor yields in both 2021 and 2022. So right now, demand is outpacing supply, though that is really a secular trend. It's not really due to the current state of the coffee supply chain. Coffee is a very popular and very fast-growing beverage, so it's really hard to say that these shortages are causing the disparity between supply and demand, but there's no doubt that it's worsening it. So coffee prices have been surging since very early 2021, and it is still showing zero signs of letting up. All throughout the coffee supply chain, people are feeling the pinch. Farmers are not benefiting from the high prices because their yields have been reduced by so much. Inventory prices have spiked, especially for small and medium-sized coffee companies, especially because they cannot afford to create safety inventories like a lot of the larger companies can. And then, of course, all of those costs have been passed down to consumers who are now forking over more money for a cup of coffee than they have in many years. And then to talk a little bit about the effects of disruptions, as stated before, the extreme weather in Brazil has just wreaked havoc on their coffee yields, and this is very important because Brazil is the largest supplier of the world's coffee. They produce and supply over 40% of the coffee that the world consumes. And unfortunately, these shortages are not unique in any way to Brazil. Other large producers such as Vietnam and Colombia are experiencing very similar shortages. And I think it's important to note that Arabica beans, which make up most of the coffee beverages that we consume, run on a 2-year production cycle in Brazil, where even numbered years yield more crop. So a poor 2022 yield will have a much greater impact relative to a poor 2021 yield because the supply chain is naturally expecting a larger harvest. So in early 2022, analysts were estimating the 12-month yield to be around 49 million bags, and they quickly downgraded that to around 35.7 million bags. So all of the problems really started with the farmers, the tier 2 suppliers, and has affected every other transaction point downstream. So I'm now going to hand this off to Catherine, who will be discussing why this whole fiasco is so important.
I'm Catherine Grad. I'm going to be discussing why this problem is important. Due to the shortage and companies not being able to gain supplies, it is reducing yield and putting a strain on companies' ability to make profits. As a result of these problems, companies are resorting to raising prices on products, which puts more pressure on the consumers. This problem has affected even some of the bigger companies like Starbucks, who have already had 3 inflation-related price changes in 2022. Currently, they were able to lock in prices with suppliers to the end of 2022. However, after their contract is up, we will see prices rise again. Even smaller coffee businesses are feeling the pain of this shortage. Some companies are struggling to afford to purchase their coffee beans, which is resulting in loss of business and profit, making them weaker in the market. Small businesses have even reported that the normal coffee beans they purchase from Brazil has increased by 75%. This makes the prices the highest they have been since 1996. Since the average price of Arabica beans was estimated around $4.17, then in October of 2019 they shot 39% to $5.79, and they're currently sitting at over $6 per pound. Now we're going to have John explain more about the Arabica coffee prices.
Hi, my name is John Vaccaro, and I'm here to talk to you about Arabica coffee prices. Here we have a chart showing you Arabica coffee prices from 2021 to today. And we're going to go over how the drought in Brazil has affected Arabica coffee prices. And in Brazil, in the year of 2021, there was a drought lasting until June. And after this drought, there was also a frost that occurred. And this frost and combined with the drought, caused Brazil's coffee production to go down drastically. And Arabica coffee takes 80% of their coffee from Brazil. So this caused the price to surge from $3.48 all the way up to $6.17 in the year of 2022. And keep in mind that Brazil is the largest producer of coffee in the world, so that's why it had such a great effect on it. This had a dramatic price effect on the price, and now we're going to tell you how this relates to operations management.
My name is Austin Landermans, and first I'll be talking about how this issue relates to operations, and then I'll be giving some additional class insights and possible courses of action that could be taken to solve this issue in the future. So the issue presented shares many characteristics with what we've learned about supply chain management. So to give you an idea about how the coffee supply chain works, the process begins with growing the beans, which typically takes 2.5 to 3 years for mature trees. The beans are then harvested and sent to processors to be hulled, cleaned, and sorted. After this, they are shipped around the world through a global supply network, and then finally they are roasted, packaged, and shipped domestically and internationally to meet the demands of consumers. So these natural disruptions have greatly affected Tier 2 suppliers, which are the farmers. This makes the process capacity constrained, and the farmers are the bottleneck. Due to this, other steps of the supply chain are greatly affected, and this is an example of variability due to supply chain partner performance. In addition, coffee can only be grown in certain parts of the world, so despite the supply chain being efficient, it naturally cannot be agile. So the supply chain's lack of adaptability emphasizes the need for strategic forecasting. Now I'll be talking about some possible courses of action that can be taken to solve this issue using class concepts. The first possible course of action is stockpiling coffee and creating a safety inventory, and this depends on whether the coffee is instant or fresh. Instant coffee can be held in inventory for years and remain fresh, while fresh coffee beans can only be held for around 6 months before they go bad. And the issue with this approach is inventory holding costs. There's an increased risk of spoilage, especially with the coffee beans, because they're more susceptible to going bad when compared with the instant coffee. The other type of inventory holding cost is opportunity cost of capital, and that is what they give up to purchase more inventory. And this would include things like sourcing more readily available beans or adding non-coffee products to menus. A cost-benefit analysis would have to be done to see if the investment in their safety inventory would be worth it. The other concept is forecasting. According to Statista, the coffee market is expected to grow 7.64% annually. This is important for producers to reflect this demand growth in their strategic planning for the future. Forecasting weather events and their effect on agriculture and crop yields is becoming more popular. There's a widely used forecast company called Climate Predict, and they create models to assess real assets' exposure to future extreme weather events. So using demand forecasting and extreme weather forecasting in conjunction can help people better prepare for these situations in the future. Next up is Brenna talking about some long-term and short-term solutions.
Thanks, Austin. I'm now going to go over some short-term and long-term solutions. Since the coffee bean shortage is caused by weather-related incidents, there's not much that can be done except to adapt to the situation, make estimates, and take proper courses of action that can help mitigate the negative effects. Some of these estimates involve inventory and demand. Predicting these values can help farmers, distributors, and coffee retailers adjust for a change in coffee bean supply. Farmers in particular can calculate the fill rate, which can help businesses determine in-stock probability. This would be especially helpful to small to medium-sized businesses that lack safety inventory. Regarding some long-term solutions, planting more coffee trees can help increase the supply over time, and this in turn could help farmers keep up with the increasing demand for coffee. Another alternative is for companies to become less dependent on Brazil for coffee and try to seek other sources of supply. This is an ongoing event, so we still have yet to see what the future holds. However, it has been estimated that a 12-month yield of coffee beans will decrease by 27%. This will impact the ability for coffee businesses to make money, especially small to medium-sized ones. And unfortunately, this has already affected consumers' wallets and may continue to affect them for some time. We've defined this situation as a capacity-constrained process where farmers are the bottleneck. However, not much can be done when faced with natural occurrences, but we wanted to show how this issue highlights the magnitude of the effects of fluctuations in a supply chain and how there are possible solutions to help mitigate those effects. Some courses of action we've discussed involve calculating fill rate, implementing safety inventory, and evaluating risks for spoilage and cost of capital. Forecasting demand and weather events can improve communication between farmers, distributors, and coffee retailers. Finally, some long-term solutions involve planting more coffee trees and seeking other sources of coffee supply. We hope you enjoyed learning about supply chain management through the lens of the coffee bean production in Brazil. Thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.